What is it really like to go on a full Northern Lights Coastal Express voyage? In this video, you'll find out why this amazing trip deserves a spot on your bucket list, and why if you travel with Havila, you could even get another trip for free, thanks to their Northern Lights Promise. Let's go. Day one is about departure from Bergen, which even on a March night looks pretty spectacular. Glorious morning here on the Norwegian coast. We're a couple of hours from Ålesund, and from Ålesund we'll be getting a smaller boat to go along to Geiranger fjord. But first we've got a bit of time to, well, enjoy the scenery, particularly as we head close to Havila's own headquarters on the Norwegian coast. This is the plan today. After a couple of early morning stops, we'll sail by Havila's headquarters before a lightning stop at tiny Torvik. Then, at Ålesund, a smaller boat will take us on our excursion to Geiranger. It all ends with a spectacular sunset back in Ålesund. We've just gone past, I think, the headquarters of Havila, so we had a little bit of tooting from the captain on the ship's horn as he went past as a greeting. There are 34 ports of call on the Coastal Express voyage. This is typical of many of them. And 10 minutes after we arrived, we're back on our way, heading towards Ålesund. What about that Northern Lights Promise from Havila? Well, it's pretty simple. If between the 1st of October and the 31st of March, when you're on a 12-day round voyage, you don't see the Northern Lights, you'll receive a free 6 to 7 day voyage with an inside cabin as compensation. Clock's ticking. Personally though, I'd just rather see the lights. Minutes after our ship docked, we were ashore, ready for the excursion. And so we say goodbye to Ålesund, and braving the cold temperatures as we pick up speed, we're now heading off to the Geiranger fjord. I could tell you how these fjords were formed, but I don't think we're going to do that. Let's just soak in some stunning scenery on a beautiful, beautiful day here in Norway. Unfortunately, at this time of year, the Seven Sisters waterfall was, well, more like 2. But the bridal veil opposite, well, that was still pretty impressive. Before long, Geiranger came into view. What a sight. The waterfall walk and a bus got us to this amazing view back over the Geiranger fjord. Sail away from Geiranger was just as spectacular as our arrival, but this time the Seven Sisters also looked amazing. There are a few more videos to come from my Coastal Express voyage, including a comparison between Havila and Hortin. To not miss out, tickle that old subscribe button. My first full day on the Coastal Express voyage was going to end with this spectacular sunset. Sadly though, no Northern Lights. This is our plan for today. A cruise into Trondheim. A delayed arrival means a shorter visit than planned, and then past a famous lighthouse all the way up to Rovik and hopefully the chance to see the Northern Lights. The approach into Trondheim, well, it's definitely one to be up on deck to enjoy. So we have lost a little bit of time here because we are running late, so I think it's time to book an Uber, which is what I've done, and that's where we're going. I definitely recommend the Uber tactic to get to the cathedral if you're not on an excursion. Yes, the walk is enjoyable, but it will eat into your time ashore, which is not that long. Trondheim Cathedral is one of the most famous buildings in Norway. It's more than 1,000 years old and was built where a Viking king, St. Olaf, was buried. Many kings have been crowned here. You can pay for entry online or at the building next to the cathedral. My second destination, Rockheim, the National Museum for Popular Music from the 1950s to the present day. There are some other amazing places to go in Trondheim, but as I'd been here before, I thought I'd try this out. It was alright, but the cathedral was definitely my favourite. Now you have to admit, that's a pretty cool place to live on a day like today, but in the middle of winter with big storms and lots of rain. Not for me. With the weather set fair for mid-March, our captain then decided to take us on a route not often used at this time of year. Now I hope that looked as good on camera as it really looked in action. It was the equivalent of a Coastal Express captain doing some London driving, going for a space that's just about there and then doing that handbrake turn in a ship, turning left. There wasn't much space in it, but as you saw, he made it. It was a really special moment. Apparently it's very rare at this time of year. It's more of a summer thing, and you also need 2 people on the bridge of the ship who have the right qualifications to do it, and we're lucky to have that on this ship. And you can always tell that something is a little bit special when members of the crew come to watch as well, and there were a few of them around. The clear skies at the end of the day suggested we might be lucky in seeing the Northern Lights. And bad news, we were. I say bad because I'm not going to get a free voyage. However, the Northern Lights were fantastic, albeit the camera and the long shutter speed make it look a little bit better than it did to the naked eye. Still, it was pretty fantastic. Here's our route for today. We'll cross the Arctic Circle before Ålesund, and then it's that baptism before Bodø, and then after an hour or so there, we're heading all the way up to the Lofoten Islands and dinner with a Viking chieftain. Early in the morning, we cross the Arctic Circle. It's marked by a small island with a globe on it. For thousands of years, it was just another island, and then mankind decided where the Arctic Circle was, and in the 1990s, this small globe was put up on it. And now every morning, a ship full of tourists passes it and toots its horn. It's a quick stop off here in Ålesund, and then a few minutes after we leave here, it's the Arctic baptism. Done it in the summer, cold water in the summer, albeit it wasn't that warm. It wasn't too bad. Cold water and ice in the winter. Yes, it's that time to meet a Norse god, and I guess get rebaptized. And so, after summoning the Norse god of the sea, Njord, it was time for the Arctic baptisms, which, by the way, this man was too happy about. But soon, it was going to be my turn. Oh my God! Here it is. Thank you very much. Oh Jesus! Oh my God! Yeah, he didn't go light on the ice. Oh dear. Oh. Well, there's no doubt we have lucked out on the weather, as you can see. Haven't even got the hat on at the moment. It's close to being needing to be on, but I'm going to brave it just for you. Walking around Boda, you'll notice one thing: there aren't many old buildings. Probably the oldest that you'll see are from the 1950s, and that's because this town took a pounding in World War II. First from the Germans when they tried to take it from the Allies and the British and the Norwegians, and then in turn from the Allies. And as a result, when you walk around here, like I said, not many historic buildings, if any. You'll see quite a few statues of that man. He was the king here in Norway during the Second World War, and I think his defiance and his story is seen as really important to this country. Boda's cathedral, built after World War II, commemorates those who died during the conflict. In the blink of an eye, it was time for a spectacular journey across to the Lofoten Islands. And with that, we're off the ship. And we're on the way to see the Vikings. The Vikings go "Arr!" I go "Arr!" In truth, there wasn't much to see during the bus journey from our ship all the way to the Viking longhouse. Skål! Make sure you take time to have a look at some of the craftwork around the longhouse. But, okay, enough of that, because word is the Northern Lights are back and outside the door. Let's have a look. It was to be our only sighting of the Northern Lights that night. However, we still had time for a bizarre run-in under a spotlight with Trollfjord. Stand by for an early morning passing of a Hurtigruten ship. It's inbound as we're about to leave the port. As for our voyage today, while I slept, we passed through a couple of ports and arrived here in Harstad. The ultimate prize is to head all the way to Tromsø, where we'll take in the seals, trolls and ice bar. As we begin to dock in Tromsø, we have sight of the first place we're visiting when ashore, the aquarium. The original plan had been reindeer and going on a sleigh for a ride, but apparently conditions aren't right for that. I could have gone and just seen the reindeer and the Sami people. Do you know what I thought? Nah, we'll have a look around Tromsø, and I really need to see some trolls. We'll do that in a bit, but first off, we're off to the aquarium. As you can see, there are a lot of wooden buildings here. Avoiding the bus spraying me. There are a lot of wooden buildings here, which is certainly something to have a little look at, but like I said, the main fare today is going to the aquarium. Well, the design, it's a little like the Arctic Cathedral, isn't it? But it also feels like a series of dominoes that have been knocked over. But at the moment I'm more worried about slipping over. It's pretty icy and slushy underfoot. Have a look. And what you need to know is that this idiot had bought spikes for his shoes to deal with the ice, but left them on the ship. Anyway, to the aquarium, which was a great mix of displays and wildlife. The main highlight was to see feeding time with the keepers. Now, after seeing real creatures from the Arctic region, it's time to go in search of the mythical trolls. Who doesn't like a troll? Yes, if you're expecting me to fall on my backside on those icy paths, you're not the only one, so am I. So there is the ship. And there is the Troll Museum. As we've just seen, the museum is just a handful of minutes away from where the ship docks. It's very small, but it's very well laid out. Now this troll reminds me of a few of my friends. I'm not saying who. If you're British, you'll probably love it because it's gloriously silly, and I mean that in the highest possible commendation. To see the little trolls and the big trolls. And that, to my right, is Roald Amundsen, the man who beat Scott to the South Pole, probably one of the most famous people associated with Tromsø. But directly opposite him is where we're going next. Yeah, we're going in an ice bar to warm up. Now, this was my first experience in an ice bar. What's it like? Well, it's just like walking into a giant freezer. I enjoyed the experience, but I'm not sure I'd want to do it again. I lied. It's warmer out here, definitely warmer out here. And off camera, or when the camera wasn't on, I managed to spill part of my drink. The day was to end by sailing past the Arctic Cathedral. It's been snowing, not a lot, but there's little bits that you can see around the ship. But this is kind of the precursor to it, you know. We're expecting more snow to come in, but also at the moment it's not really that windy. However, we are promised that when we get to Honningsvåg and the route up to the North Cape, that the wind is going to pick up to the extent that they're probably going to cancel the buses up to the North Cape. Weather permitting today, we've 7 stops across the north of Norway, with Honningsvåg the major stop-off point. Before that, though, a chance to greet a passing Hurtigruten ship. The good news, the buses to the North Cape were going to operate. But for me, that was pretty irrelevant. I've been there before, so this time I thought I'd take you for a look around the town. Well, we're off the ship, as you can see. Full thermals on, they're doing the trick. The advice was to get, believe it or not, woolen underwear and undergarments, and at the moment it is doing the trick. I don't feel too cold. To be honest, it's not that windy though, as you can hear here. I think it'll be a lot windier up at the North Cape. As you'd be able to see on my other video when I visited the North Cape on this channel in the summer, it was chalk and cheese to what it's like today. It was really, really busy. Lots of buses, blue skies, and temperature around 20 degrees. Today, ghost town, and it's around -1, -2. It's not too bad. There is a story to that dog which is detailed here, but I don't think you really want to read that, so I'll tell you about it when I walk around town in a minute. Well, seeing that and going to the Troll Museum, I'm going to have to go back to the souvenir shop over there and do the ultimate tourist thing in Norway and get myself a troll. Across northern Norway you'll see lots of big wooden racks, and they're there to dry the fish, predominantly cod, and there's a small version of it for some reason just here near the ship. If you look up the hill or mountain just behind Honningsvåg, you'll see some fences to catch any potential avalanches from hitting the houses below. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them in the space of about 100 metres. So to Bamse, the St Bernard. It served aboard the Therod, a Norwegian naval minesweeper in World War II. It was actually registered as a crew member, and it used to boost morale amongst the crew and the locals in Dundee and Montrose. He was known also for breaking up fights between sailors and would ride on the bus alone to round up crews from the pub when it was time to leave. He died in 1944 and has a statue here and also in Montrose in Scotland. So I have my troll, which I'll show you in a second, but let's have a little walk round to the harbour and then get back on board. With our ship behind me, let's introduce you to my new friend. Now look, I can't unwrap and hold a camera at the same time, so I'm going to have to do some magic instead. Here he is. Woohoo! I think we look great together, don't you? This is my friend Torbjorn. I'm going to name him after the bus driver when we went to the Geiranger fjord. In the end, I didn't think the weather was that bad, and the worst of it you can see shot from inside. But for me, it certainly wasn't reach for a sick bag type of storm. Finally then, my day ended with fine dining at Hildring. I thought, for the price, it was pretty good. Very enjoyable, and a nice treat during your time aboard a Havila ship. Good morning from northeast Norway and Vadsø, which we'll only stop at on the way into Kirkenes and not back. After a brief stop though, we're on our way to Kirkenes, which gives me a chance to take you through the route that we're going to take today. After our third stop of the day, it's on to Kirkenes, where we'll get off and try the dog sledding. After that, we're starting to head back west, and first of all to Vardø, where I'll have a little walk around. Then, as darkness falls, if these clear skies hold, we'll hold our breath and hope for some more northern lights. Kirkenes, well, it brings to an end the journey north and east for the Coastal Express. After that, it's time to head back towards Bergen. Ultimately, it's also the final point where those of you who'll be on a northerly journey only will be disembarking. We now face a 30-minute or so bus journey from the ship to the Snow Hotel. So look, the Snow Hotel was very impressive. The carvings, well, they certainly did make you pause and stare. The beds, I'm not sure I'd want to be in a nice bed. And even then, when I got outside and the chance to feed the reindeer, in my mind, it was all about meeting the dogs and getting on that sled. Hello. Hello. Can you introduce me to the dogs?
Oh yeah, of course. So at the front we have the lead dogs.
Yep.
We have Cecilia and Liv. They are siblings.
Yep.
Then we have a swing dog, Cold Foot. Hey, Fingert. Yeah.
A nice stroke?
Yeah, they are friendly.
It's a bigger dog, yeah?
Yeah, he's a big boy. Then we have Rooster and Ellie as line dogs.
Looks a bit more like a Labrador, this one.
Yeah, they are. It's a really mixed breed, the Alaskan Husky.
Yeah.
And they have Ellie, and they have really mixed genetics, but still, they are part of the same breed. And the most important biological perks are common. And we have the wheel dogs. We have Vulcan and Navi. Left my sunglasses at home.
Oh yeah.
And
it's not easy.
Yeah, right now I'm driving like one eye closed and then oh yeah.
Well, that It was as good as hopefully it looked. One of the best excursions I think I've ever done. And so 3.5 hours after we arrived, it's time to leave Kirkenes. And it's goodbye to the dogs, to the Russian border, and we're heading off now to Varde. That behind me is Varde, and we've been given an extra 10 minutes to have a look around than was originally planned. Should we go and have a look? We have 15 minutes to walk away from the ship and 15 minutes to walk back. So yes, if you come to this town, whether you're driving or whether you are on the Coastal Express voyage, you can head to the castle, which is about 300 metres that way, and then the memorial to the women killed in the witch trials is just a little bit further on. And there is an excursion here to go for an icy dip. Not in a month of Sundays. I did pretty well with the ice baptism, the Arctic baptism, earlier in the series, but nah, I'm not going for a swim in the sea in weather like this. But what I am going to show you is a lot of seagulls. I thought Tromsø had its fair share of seagulls, but Varde is giving it a close run for its money. Well, without the ice on the paths and the slightly truncated time here, I could probably have got to that church or maybe up to the memorial for the women killed in the witch trials, but realistically, as I'm dive bombed by some seagulls, I have to turn around and go back towards the ship. The fine weather as we left Varde gave me real hope that once again we might get to see the Northern Lights again on this ship. We were in luck. We had some pretty heavy seas apparently overnight, some strong winds, but I have to tell you, I slept like a baby and I didn't feel it. However, it's certainly true that we had strong winds because we're running late. We were supposed to have nearly 2 hours in Hammerfest, which claims to be the world's most northerly city with a population of 10,000. Notice I get the little caveat in there. However, we're only going to get around an hour. And that will be probably our longest stop off of the day as we gradually begin the journey south, taking in 7 ports, ending in Tromsø just before midnight. Port means we've only got time to go to one place, and it's the little mound just behind me. The monument we're approaching marks the northernmost point of the Struve Geodetic Arch, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was a chain of survey triangulations used in the 1800s to determine the exact size and shape of the Earth. I have to say, being here on deck at the moment, it's very quiet, not many people around. It's quite surreal, and in truth it's like being in a walk-in freezer, apart from the fact you get views of little towns that we're about to stop in. And this is what's really great about the Coastal Express. You get to see real Norway in action, including them landing their catches right behind us as we dock for just 15 minutes or so. And pretty soon, day became night, and the snow, well, it got a little bit heavier as we approached our final port before Tromsø. A couple of hours later, the approach to Tromsø. It always seems to offer something quite dramatic, and we weren't going to be disappointed once again. After a snowy end to day 8, well, the weather has certainly turned now, and we're very much beginning that journey all the way back to Bergen and the end of our voyage. Today we're going to start with a quick stop in Harstad, and then it's on to Sortland, famous for its affinity with the colour. I'll then take you walkabout round Stokmarknes before, via Trollfjord, it's on to the Lofoten Islands. I'm not going on a tour. I'm going, as I just said to the woman who's checking me out, I'm going for a 5-minute walk out and a 5-minute walk back, because we've only got, well, in theory half an hour stop, but we were about 5 or 6 minutes late getting in, and they want you back on the boat about 5 minutes before. But yes, not a very long stop here in Harstad, but nice just to get out, scrunch around the snow with no ice. Now, our approach into Risøyhamn is through the famous Risøyene. It's a man-made channel opened back in 1922, and it allows passage into the island on which Risøyhamn is. Well, we're approaching Sortland, and it's become well known, if you watch any videos about these coastal express cruises, for a certain tradition. The tradition, well, passengers gather on deck and wave Norwegian flags at other passengers returning from their excursions. Their bus beeps at our boat, and then a few seconds later, the boat returns the favour. Sortland is famous for something. Let's see if you can work it out. Have you worked out what Sortland behind me is famous for? Yes, you're right. Having lots of buildings coloured blue. Some call it the Blue Town. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I'm not sure there's enough buildings coloured blue for that, but it certainly stands out in this snowy landscape. And so it's see you later to Sortland. We're now on to Stokmarknes, and what that's known for is having a museum for Hurtigruten, the rivals of Havila. But it shows very much the history of the Coastal Express. Yes, that unusual building is Hurtigruten's museum. Think of it a little bit like a ship in a bottle, because there's a former Coastal Express ship inside for you to have a look around. So look, I've been into the museum before, and if you want to see what it's like, a link to that video is on the screen now. But I'm going to brave this very slippy path and head into town. By the way, how long have we got till we have to be back on board and the ship's going? From when we docked, it's an hour. I hope the beauty of Norway really comes across in my videos, because it is stunning. And I think even after 4 or 5 days you're like, that's amazing. I just wonder if the Norwegians are a little bit different. They're like, it doesn't become that special. It's taken me about 20 minutes, so Hopefully if you do the same, you've got plenty of time to get back to the ship and not be left in stock darkness. We're now entering another part of the Coastal Express experience where you really want to be on deck to see it. It's the Rafsundet Strait. At its widest, it's around 1 kilometre wide. At its narrowest, it gets down to 250 metres. And yet again, there are some fantastic sights out on deck. So how narrow is it? That's one side. But if we walk through the ship,
That's good. Manage.
pretty narrow, and that's not the narrowest point. That's back there where we just come through. Now you're probably wondering what that little boat was doing coming up towards the ship. Well, it's about to take away some of the passengers. We're going to go and look in this weather rather than me for the sea eagles. Now, it won't surprise you to know that I'm no maritime expert, but to me this looks like pretty good seamanship to do this. So should seeing the sea eagles like this be on your bucket list? Well, clearly I didn't do the excursion, but I asked some of those that did, and they said despite the cold weather, it was amazing. So maybe, just maybe, when you're on the Havila or Hortin voyages, you might just want to do that. And so we move on to Trollfjord, and unfortunately at this time of year, ships like ours are not allowed to go inside. But if you do go on the Coastal Express in the summer and the weather conditions are right, you will get a chance to cruise up inside. And trust me, it is an amazing thing to do. Well, there's no rest for the wicked. We're going to get off this ship and head on to the Lofoten Islands and go in search of the Lofoten Islands history. On a glorious midsummer's evening, this would be a glorious drive. But on a wet March day with dusk approaching, it wasn't the most spectacular. If history is your sort of thing, then coming here would be right up your street. With the help of the guide and the surroundings, you learn something of the fishing industry and what a tough life it would have been for the men involved in it. What is it they say on the adverts? Come to Norway and witness the amazing scenery. Not looking too great this morning. The weather's certainly having its say. And to start our day, one of the rituals of the Coastal Express, a greeting to a passing Hortin ship heading north. And minutes later, we head south across the Arctic Circle. Now you might be wondering where in Norway I am today. Well, the first few stops, I slept through them, not awake. But ultimately we're heading towards central Norway and on to Brønnøysund. Brønnøysund is where we'll be getting off and heading for Torghatten. We're headed for one of the big sites that you get on this route. It's not the one we're going to walk up, which is still to come on this video. It is the Seven Sisters, which is just south of here. In folklore, the Seven Sisters Mountains were created as 7 troll princesses would turn to stone at sunrise while fleeing an unwanted suitor. Boring science claims these peaks are hard granite nunataks that survived the power of glaciers during the last ice age. Now look, we all know that the first story is the right one, right? We have reached Brønnøysund, which is pretty much at the central point of Norway. From the south all the way up to the North Cape, if you got a ruler out and you drew the central point, it would be here in Brønnøysund. As you take in the views from the bus, I think it's important to explain exactly how Torghatten was formed. Let's go with folklore first of all, and it's linked to the story of the Seven Sisters. The Troll King Summer threw his hat to block an arrow aimed at the fleeing Seven Sisters. The arrow pierced the hat just as the sun rose, turning it to stone. Geology, though, says that the hole is a marine cave. It was carved by the immense power of waves and ice eroding a weak spot in the granite during the last ice age, when sea levels were much higher. The land later rose, lifting the tunnel high above the sea. The walk up to Torghatten, including around 1,100 steps, took around half an hour, but the reward was views like this. The weather, which held off for us on the way up to Torghatten, is now very much closed in, and it's raining. Frankly, I should have the hood up really. And we are approaching Torghatten. Now let's see what sort of view we can get for you on a grey, can't even say it, on a grey, wet, cold day. Squint and you can see the hole just here. Right, well, it is cold. Let's see what it's like when you get inside the jacuzzi. I have the hat on, so that should make all the difference. My body under the water feels perfectly fine. Above the waterline, it's freezing. Welcome to the penultimate day of my coastal express voyage. I guess the final full day as well. And it's starting with a little cruise into Trondheim. We'll stay there a couple of hours and then we're heading south towards Kristiansund. And there we'll be getting off and going, hopefully, on a very famous piece of road that's made even more famous by James Bond, and heading down a mine. Yes, down a mine. Who would have thought? Yeah, that sign is not really helping, because the terminal, I know it's a certain route, but it's the same terminal. It's that way, and the signpost is pointing that way. Anyway, onward. So that statue is of Leif Erikson. Who is he? Well, he was the leader of a group of Vikings that left here in the year around 10,000 and headed in that direction. And they ended up in a place they called Vinland, which we now know as North America. Forget your Christopher Columbus. It was the Vikings from Trondheim who made it across the Atlantic first of all. 7 hours after leaving Trondheim, we're in Kristiansund and gliding into its magnificent harbour. We quickly turn our back on our ship and head along the Atlantic Road towards a famous James Bond bridge. So we've pulled over to go and have a look at the Bond Bridge. Now look, it is behind me in that direction, but you can loop round to it. And as everyone was going in one direction, I thought I'd go in the opposite direction. And I would actually recommend the way we've come as the way to see the bridge. Walking, trying to think about this, anti-clockwise around that bit of land, because it gradually reveals itself. I think that's probably the best way to see it. A not quite as spectacular drive across the Bond Bridge as James Bond made. Quickly though, we head across country and to this surreal marble mine. A raft ride around the mine and a taste of the water, and we're pretty quickly back on the road. Arriving in Molde before the ship, we're pretty quickly aboard and heading back out to sea for our final night aboard the ship. This is our route for today. A couple of very early morning stops, 3 to be precise, and now we're currently on our way to Flora, and then after that we're going to head all the way down the coast to Bergen and Journey's End. This was to be our final stop before Bergen. And what about this? A pair of orcas out at sea. What did I make of my Northern Lights voyage with Havila? Well, for me, it was worth every penny. As hopefully I've shown you in this video, Norway is a stunningly beautiful country to visit, and I can't think of a better way than on the Coastal Express to take its beauty in.